Yes, welcome to the Old Stoney's podcast live, and we are doing it. Matt, I can't believe we're here. We're doing it. It's amazing.
Absolutely, right?
It's just it's a good times, you know. We were going to be in the studio, but we're still having to do some things from here and there, and we figured we might as well just do the damn show live, right?
Yeah, let's get it done. Let's get it over with. We're ready for prime time, dude. We're so ready for this.
No extra work, no extra things to do. We definitely want to make sure that everything goes nice and smooth. But if you don't know, this is the Old Stoney's podcast. We're on Canacast 420 on the website, canacast420.com. We're also on TalkCast PDX, which is a local community network here in Portland. It's just amazingly fun. Lots of great shows on there. We'll talk
wide diversity of shows too.
Yeah, wide range of shows. So much fun. We'll talk about that a little later in the program. We also have a great guest today, and we're going to talk to Kelly O'Connor in just a minute. She's waiting patiently. But we just want to say thanks to all of our folks who keep listening and watching and coming and seeing things. You know, we have quite a few episodes floating around out there in the interwebs. Old past episodes of the Old Stonies, and now all the new ones are starting to come out and join forces with those. We've been kind of gone for a little while, and
from the before times, before all this craziness happened.
The before times,
I like to call them.
That's right. And so we just like to welcome everybody back. And right now, today, we are broadcasting on. This is going to be awesome. Here's the list. You ready for the list? All right. We're on the TalkCast PDX Twitch channel. We're also on the Twitter and Periscope channels for TalkCast PDX. We're on Facebook Live, and we're on YouTube for TalkCast PDX. And then for Canacast 420, we are on our Facebook Live page and our website, canacast420.com. So we're everywhere.
That's everywhere.
That's where we need to be, right?
That's right. We got to beam this shit out into space, man. Let the aliens pick it up.
Well, let's bring in our guest. Kelly O'Connor from Columbia Labs is with us. How are you today? Thanks for being on the Old Stonies.
Hey, how you guys doing?
Good. Welcome in.
Okay, sweet. Yeah, thanks. It's a beautiful day. What, 77 outside or something like that?
Oh, absolutely. It's it's yard season for me, so I'm just tearing all the weeds out and getting everything trimmed, looking good.
Are you a gardener? Do you garden? I mean, other than like cannabis?
I do a little bit of cannabis. I grow weed every summer, so I'm kind of getting that area ready right now. It's pretty much what I'm worried about. But yeah, it's time to start hunting for clones, and yeah, we got to get our season on.
Nice, absolutely, yeah. It's clone season, that's for sure.
Right?
It's time. It's time. It's definitely time.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, Kelly. So you work for Columbia Labs, and just give us a little brief history. Some folks might know you and I have chatted before. You were actually on the Quick Hit, which is interviews within 4 minutes and 20 seconds, which is also on Canacast 420. And you were on that. What was that, a couple months ago?
Yeah, man, time's flying by. Absolutely. That's a good one to kind of give a brief overview about what we do. So Columbia Laboratories is, we've been around for a really long time, about 40 years, and we test for consumer goods. So we do like a lot of agricultural testing for pesticides, and we do nutritional facts labels, things like that. We rebranded at the beginning of 2020, which is an incredible time to try to hit the market with a new image. And all that stuff, right? But so most people would know our cannabis department as Pyxis Laboratories. So we were Pyxis originally, and but it's just a renaming to kind of showcase how we have all the different departments in the same house with different capabilities. I feel like it was not that long ago that so many companies were like, oh, we got to have one name for cannabis and one name for like our legitimate anything. But luckily, happily, we're moving kind of forward past that point of professional stigmatism, obviously with the House bill passing for, financial support for cannabis companies and things like that. But anyway, so we are Columbia Laboratories, but as Pyxis Laboratories, we were the very first ORLAP certified cannabis testing laboratory for the recreational market in 2015. So we've been a long-standing service provider here in Oregon, and then certainly beyond for all of our testing.
Nice.
Yeah.
My question, is there a big difference in departments? I mean, is there a huge leap from testing cannabis versus all the other products that you guys do?
Oh, I mean, that's a good question. Like, so in the lab, like the boring answer is that basically, like every one of our specialty analysts works with on multiple different types of products. So our metals specialists, they test metals in water for the state of Oregon, in soil for, Iowa farmers, and then they're also testing heavy metals in cannabis, right? So the same people are looking at multiple different matrices. But then if you ask like, how is it to test cannabis against testing other things that we test in house? Cannabis is one of the most complicated and chemically composed botanicals in the universe, we think. So yeah, the actual analysis on cannabis is very, very complicated and takes some expert eyes to make sure you're doing it right. That's for sure.
So you guys aren't just hanging out in hammocks in the back, just smoking all this stuff, going, "Yeah, this is pretty good." No, this isn't that good at all.
Yeah, no, I mean,
It's slightly more involved than that, I imagine.
yeah, it is a lot more involved in that actually. I do a lot of like cannabis education for the people that work in the lab in terms of like strains and like this is good and this is bad
That's
and
cool.
stuff. Because like, they're scientists. They don't want to talk to humans. They don't want to taste the samples. They want to do data entry and analyze everything all day. So, so I'm so proud to represent the people that work at Columbia. I mean, this is a team of like very professional scientists. So no stoners except for me. I'm the resident stoner at Columbia Laboratories.
Wow.
That's a good spot to be in, though.
Yeah. They just they keep me out of the lab for the most part. But yeah, it's awesome for sure. A little bit different.
Yeah, that's that.
I think there was a go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say you've been doing a little traveling too. And one of the reasons that I wanted to have you on because I wanted to talk about your recent trip. You jetted all the way over to Denver.
Mm-hmm.
And what was the convention there? Which one was that?
Yeah, so we test a lot for the open market, like hemp industry. A lot of that product, of course, is coming from Oregon. All the best weed comes from Oregon, whether it's hemp or cannabis, right? So, and that's really cool because I mean we're connected in a global supply chain through the hemp industry for sure. So we work a lot with Colorado companies. I went to a CBD expo specifically, and upstairs they had a scientific psychedelic conference as well. So lots of learning in that zone for sure. And I also did a trip recently as well to Indiana along the same kind of route, just kind of checking out what's going on over there on the East Coast. And yeah, it was really, really interesting and fascinating. Colorado's testing regulations are about to go whoop. And so it's definitely something to keep a pulse on right now.
So yeah, touch on that. What are they going to do differently? Well, what are they doing that we're not doing, I guess, would be the best way.
Oh, yeah.
What does that? I mean, when you say whoop, does that mean like they're way down here and we're way up here? Or what's that?
Let's see. Okay, so obviously there's a lot of hang on, I'll close this because there's dogs outside.
Oh, we don't mind dogs. We got
I know,
dogs,
they're just
cats, everything.
Got cats running around my feet like crazy. You can see them bouncing around here a little bit. Those are my cats.
Okay, cool. So let's see, Colorado. Colorado is adopting it. I think it's just for their hemp programs, but kitty. But they used to only require 13 pesticides for testing for hemp, cannabis, or any products derived or infused with hemp and cannabis. And Colorado has put forth new testing regulations that are going live in July. And those are going to include a very expanded list of pesticides that matches the Health Canada list for analytes and LOQs, plus a few additional analytes too. Yeah, so it's very robust. It's very deep dive into the pesticide analysis testing. The residual solvents profile matches ours for the most part. They are requiring microbiology, which like Oregon is still trying to pronounce microbiology. So hopefully we can get there pretty soon too. But yeah, so that's what's coming up now in Colorado. Really cool about that though, is that Columbia Laboratories has already been testing to meet those specifications for like the last year. Cool. Yeah. So we actually got a little in, and this whole new process that they're having in Colorado is actually to have the state certify testing labs. They have to be ISO accredited. They have to meet all these analytes and LOQs. They have a lot of regulations around that. And Columbia Laboratories, coming from Oregon, is actually the very first to apply and likely get certified for Colorado testing practices.
Oh, right on. That's cool. Wow, that's going to be interesting to see when they implement that in July, because, I mean, if I know stoners, they're not going to get their farms ready until they absolutely have to.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to have some shortages in supplies. I see pricing spikes. Oh, my God, this is going to be really interesting to see what goes on in Colorado.
Yeah, definitely.
That's good, but it's good. It's good to have the industry moving that way, and, if we ever get this thing federally legalized, we're going to have a testing standard for the whole country. And I think we're going to be looking at this stuff as medicine. Those testing requirements are going to be pretty damn stringent.
Yeah. It is the most regulated market out there, cannabis, right? I mean, we're coming into it as cannabis. So like we already have this stigma and history of doing shady shit. But it's certainly not the way the market is these days. And something that I've been working on in a lot of the regulatory panels here in Oregon, working with the health authority and stuff like that, has been actually to lower the bar of entry for testing, because if we can make it still a safe product on the market, but lower the cost and, increase batch sizes and things like that, then it's more accessible for everybody. And ultimately, I think that, it's not about testing everybody out of the market. It's about testing everybody into the market. So, there's a sweet spot there, certainly. And as an industry stakeholder, we certainly want to see growth in the market rather than any stifling due to testing regulations, for sure.
So would that be looking like two different grades of testing, like a retail testing and then like a medical testing where it's like super, super clean, and maybe some retail level stuff where I don't know. I have no idea how that would work.
Yeah, it's a whole world of crazy things, right? But we have they're trying to standardize across the board. Even, our Oregon regulators are working to match, we're going to have heavy metals and mycotoxin testing added into our programs here in Oregon, like within the next year. That is happening. So it's like everyone's trying to align comprehensively as best as possible at this point in time. So hopefully there won't be more fractionalized testing requirements.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, that makes sense. And that makes sense too, because cannabis, the plant itself, is really, really good at cleaning out the soil. So if there's anything in the soil that's nasty, it's going to do its job and pull it up into the plant. We just don't want to be smoking that stuff.
Yeah.
They were planting hemp. They're planting hemp around Chernobyl to actually eat up all the radiation around the ground there. Now, obviously, you don't want any of that product. But yeah, I get why you'd want to be testing for all this stuff, because the plant is really good at cleaning itself up.
You definitely would know if you did get that product, because you'd become a glow stick. People be like, "What the hell? What's going on?" It's like, it is a great idea, and I've seen this idea from a couple of different scientists and talking with a couple of different people about them dropping, millions of seeds in that area, so those plants could soak up that radiation, and then they'd go and take those plants down, of course, and do it over and over and over. I'm not sure what they're doing with those plants when they're done with them.
That's why we need this testing, because you sure as hell wouldn't want to see that stuff enter back into the system.
Well, that's why I say it's a Russian market. You don't know. It could go from there to in a bale and then shipped halfway around the world. Who knows?
You guys are crazy. That is not happening.
All right. So Justin runs on these little. He spent a lot of time in Alaska by himself, so I worry about him sometimes.
A lot of nights in the cabin, solitude, just me and the dog.
Come to us, Justin.
The sun never sets over there, man. They don't get to sleep.
If my dog could talk, she would tell you about some of the weird conversations her and I had.
That's awesome.
It's just funny stuff. But yeah, I've heard that.
You're right, though, in talking about the plant as like a bioremediator, especially as we're in planting season right now and thinking about those kinds of things. And for anybody that's listening to this out in, I don't know, the multiverse, it is worth a consideration to send in some soil and water samples for testing for contaminants like pesticides and heavy metals. And I'm super happy to help if anybody wants to do that. We do a ton of soil testing and water testing as well. And it's good to do that every season, honestly.
that brings me another question. Now, what if I've already harvested and I kind of want to see how I did this season, or to make sure that, nothing happened to my plant while I wasn't looking at it? Do you guys do testing for just regular folks?
Yeah, absolutely. Just R&D testing, not for compliance, self-submitted samples. If they're outside of the metric system, you can just kind of drop them on off and that sort of thing. We test for home grows and stuff like that as well.
That's awesome.
But yeah. I mean, not a ton, we test for pretty large CPG companies out there. So,
Right.
but we're happy to serve, mom and pop or whatever, as well. Definitely. But
That's
get your
cool.
soil and water tested is kind of the main jam right
Yeah.
there.
And I know a few medical collectives that they're patients, but they've all grouped together. They're growing together, so it's a pretty sizable harvest after they're all done with it. So something like that would be really beneficial to them, I'm sure, because they are using this stuff for medicine. They need to know what the potency is.
Yeah.
And as far as I know, up until now, they've been kind of guesstimating at it. So yeah. We'll have to get Jeremy Robbins, get these guys hooked up. I think that'd be a good thing.
Oh yeah,
that would be
absolutely.
Yeah, it is plant medicine for sure. I mean, when you get like pretty far away through the processing and you're starting to hit into like synthetic cannabinoids and isomers and things like that through processing, I don't know if I'd still call it plant medicine, but certainly like any harvestable material and, anything as close to the plant as possible, full spectrum, RSO, all that kind of stuff.
RSO, all these awesome CBGs and CBDs and all these new chemical components that are coming out. It's pretty nice to know what's in your medicine these days.
Yeah.
For sure. I mean, I was just kind of reverting back to the old days. I was talking to some folks, I know the old days, 5 years ago, back when it was still medical, talking about some of the choices that we had available then when it came to dabs, all right? Because we were talking about oil and hash and different things. And I recently went to a market. I'm not going to mention the name of the dispensary. Of course, they had some great choices. They had some white label and some other brands that we know and are well trusted. Then they had a couple of new lines, lower tier, let's say. Anytime you roll up on a place that says $10 oil, you kind of got to go, whoa, okay, let's investigate. Let's investigate. I'm not going to smoke that shit, but I'm going to investigate. And so I went in, I investigated. There was some really slick packaging, one whiff, and I was like, that's not going in me. It reminded me, and no disrespect to this company, but it reminded me of Who Oil. I don't know if you remember.
Oh, yeah, I remember Who.
Yeah, I remember Who Oil.
It was fucking terrible.
Mm-hmm.
I would never, ever ingest that into my body. But boy, this stuff was right on par with that. And I just couldn't get over it. I was like, wow. I mean, they got all this great product, and then they just ruined their whole thing by having this shit bag product sitting here. I don't care how cheap it is. I would rather sell somebody something for $15 instead of sell it for $10 and save them,
It's a crazy market right now, right? Like, I mean, the prices are cheap, frankly. Like, the prices are cheap out there, and like, I get a lot of behind the scenes action, right? I see what companies are making very large business decisions about undercutting the market or putting new products on the market that have never been seen before and things like that. And I think it's absolutely worth vetting out the companies that you're imbibing with, because they all do it slightly differently, right? Everybody does it differently. And I'd just be aware of really cheap, all the products in my mind are really cheap. Like even wild gummies are what, like $15 for the container. Yeah, and those are the higher tier pricing on the market, right? And that's great. And they can have lower prices for different reasons, but like, why not spend a few extra dollars on something that's going to be astronomically better in quality, right? Mm-hmm. Because we're already hitting such a low price point. So like, so when I go shopping at dispensaries and stuff, I mean, I'm willing to throw a few extra bucks a gram, or go with the top shelf anything, because you can almost be guaranteed that it's going to be extremely, extremely good stuff.
And here's a question I need to ask you. It's been brewing in my mind with the testing thing, and you don't have to get into this too much, but it seems to be I had a friend of mine writes for High Times magazine, and So Fresh Farms took a sample and took it to several different labs. Same cola, just took different parts of it. And there was a very, very wide discrepancy on the test results. And there's always been this rumor in the industry of certain labs give really, really good test results and others. When that number literally means the difference between a $10 gram and an $18 gram, that's got to be really difficult in the industry to try to, I mean, why do we see such big discrepancies like that?
Oh, the why is that could be a whole podcast, right?
I'm sure, and I know you're not like, you know, you're not one of the lab technicians and stuff, but
I've got all the answers for you, Matt. I got all the answers for you. You know, coming out of Lablandia. I'll say a couple things here. Okay, testing, yeah, right. Testing and sampling is complicated. Okay, so if I have a cola and I send the top part of my cola to lab A and the bottom part of my cola to lab B, you think I'm going to get the same report?
No, I know.
Right? It's a heterogeneous plant. Now, if I take that cola and I grind it all up together and mix it all up together, and then I send little subsamples of that to lab A and to lab B, you think I'm going to have more consistent test results? Absolutely, so. Right? Yeah. So self-submitted samples and the lack of standardization for how people create a homogenized, consistent sample is probably a really, really big pain point as to why there's variation in labs reporting in potency. I'll also say that the standard analysis for potency does have an analytical acceptance variance of about plus or minus 10%. So
okay, and that makes sense.
Anybody could test within this range and still be considered accurate, right? So that's number 2 for it. There have been quite a few laboratories that have actually gone out of business for the nefarious business practice of dry labbing and creating inflated potency results. We haven't really seen too much, we haven't seen any enforcement from our regulatory body of like ORLAP and OHA and stuff here to come down and say, oh, you guys are committing consumer fraud, essentially.
Right.
But we've seen examples up in Washington. Praxis Labs, man, they got busted. They got 125,000 samples or something like that were pulled for inflated potency results. As they were getting busted, they were trying to destroy the evidence. Then they
potency results of 45%. 45% THC. I'm like, no.
For like a Dutch treat or something. It's like, get out of town. Yeah, so there's a lot to be said for that there, you know, and like it is a big problem in the industry because actually in Canada right now there's a class action lawsuit against companies that have inflated potency results from consumers saying I paid for 40% THC and I'm getting, 20% THC. So basically stealing money out of my pocket by these fake lab results. So yeah, right. I mean, it's like known other places, but here in Oregon, it's kind of just like par for the course and people are cool with it. Basically.
And even within that 10% variance, I mean, there's the price point at a 15% THC and 25%, that's always across the board that's going to be, and it could possibly be, we had a flower that came in purple punch, and we had an outdoor purple punch. Outdoor purple punch tested at 25, but the indoor, which was just so frosty, I mean, it was almost white, came out at 18. And this outdoor stuff was just hay. There was nothing on it. It was amazing, the discrepancies that come through with that stuff. But and I know it's not always an exact science, but I mean, it is.
Yeah, it is. It's analytical chemistry, I mean, we actually have 3 different potency analyses in house. Like we have one specifically for isolates that reduces that measurement of uncertainty down to 0.2%. And so that's used for process formulation and stuff on distillates or isolates only. And then we have a trace LOQ where we can test the LOQ of like THC and CBN and things like that all the way down to 0.001. And those are the requirements for import for European Union, Japan, UK, you name it, right? So really, it does require kind of next level analysis, but the standard potency analysis is the one that everybody basically uses, and there is a variance there, and there's no oversight for making sure that those numbers are indeed actually what they're supposed to be.
Right on.
Yeah, it sucks.
You handled that really well. I was like, oh, I don't want to ask this. It's going to be like the dark question. Okay,
No,
cool.
no, it's a great question. Totally. And like, I mean, Columbia Labs, we test for so many other industries. We run pesticides for like the second largest produce retailer in the country. Okay. So like when we're doing our job, ours is about consumer safety, accuracy. Like these numbers are people's lives. And so
Yeah.
the way that we conduct our analysis is quite different than the standard practice here in Oregon. We consider it to be a level up from what the community is used to. But yeah, you're right. It's very hard to compete when if I'm going to test something accurately, I say, hey, yeah, that's a 20% Dutch treat. And then you can go down the street and tell them that you want it to be 35%. And then they give you that lab report. So
yeah, that can be, I can see what the problem is with that. And I'm trying as a bud tender and Justin, we're both trying to get people away from that THC number because it really doesn't, in the end of the day, it really doesn't matter a whole lot of difference, in the numbers where the terpene levels would be a little bit more important to you.
Okay, so can I ask you then, Matt? Like, okay, so when people are shopping for flower, right? It's like these THC number variances and things like that. It's like we have distillates, we have RSO, we have live resin, we have dabs, we have like shatter, we have wax, we have like really high concentration medical edibles where you can get like 100 milligrams in one little tiny treat. Right? I mean, I love a Dabinol. Okay, a Dabinol is 440 milligrams of THC in a tincture, right? So like
RSO guy, 680 milligrams in one little thing.
Yeah, damn, like absolutely. It's always like a roulette if you're gonna have a good night or not. But really, like, so why, from a consumer standpoint, why the boost in potency numbers on flower? At some point, like, I want to smoke flower that's like personally between 20. And like, I don't want to go over 30% because I like to smoke flower a lot. And then if I do want that, I turn to my dab, I turn to my RSO. So like, why is the push for things to be going over 30%?
It's just that constant more. And everyone is related to themselves that a higher number equates to a better flower and a better smoking experience. And a lot of people have just convinced themselves that if it doesn't have 30% THC, it's not going to do anything for me. And it's really difficult. I know. And I tell people all the time, here, try some of this, the apricot moonshine or the forbidden fruit, these really lower 18 to 15% with super high terpene levels. And they come back to me and they're like, why did this do this to me? And I have to explain to them that, THC on one side of the place makes us very excited and doesn't make us very hungry, but the same molecule will make us tired and relaxed and empty our fridge out. One chemical cannot do all of this. So that's why we have terpenes to help push the THC to different areas of our bodies. When you take that to a concentrate, and not all concentrates are created equally. If we're looking at a distillate edible versus a butter edible, we were talking to Elby a couple weeks ago. Oil just does not infuse with your body very well. So, I mean, it'll get you high, but not as intense or very long as a butter, which really does tend to infuse into our body and stay in our system a little bit longer. So those tend to be the little bit of a more potent edible, but they take a look at the pricing on those. Now all of a sudden they want the cheapest edible, but they want the most expensive weed. So it really doesn't add up to when you look at it from from a scientific point of view. It just doesn't add up. It's our job to just kind of wipe everything clean and start fresh and just try this and be honest with yourself and how it's hitting you.
That's awesome. That's great to hear. So like terpenes aren't a required testing. It's not required testing. It's optional here in the state. Would you say that should be something that should be on every flower panel? Is there, or even distillate or RSO? Like, would you think so?
If you want to be respected as a farm and have people really truly follow what you do, I think those terpenes are very, very important because every once in a while you're going to have a luck and pop off a good THC number. You'll roll the dice with the lab and it'll get you good results. But those terpenes, those are really going to be what the customer feels and the effects of the flower itself. And if you haven't taken your time to try to promote that, and that's normally within your curing process, if I'm not mistaken, we know the farmers that do a good job and we follow them and we look anxiously to new stuff that they put out, even though we might not get the terpene count every time. But being able to have that terpene count in there, was like, holy crap, you just knocked it out on the limonene. But it gives you a clue of how that flower is also going to affect you if you know what these chemicals are.
So yeah, when I used to buy weed, back in the day, I grew up in Northern California. I'm from Santa Rosa. And I used to buy my weed behind Round Table. And so until I was like, oh, I can grow this myself. Perfect.
Right.
But little Kelly running around like, woohoo, looking for weed. The way we used to buy it was like, smell this bag, smell this bag. Like what appeals to you, right? And so it's crazy to me when I travel up into Washington State. You go into a dispensary and everything is wrapped in plastic, right? And there's no smells. I'm like, can you put like a scratch and sniff on the top or something?
That's actually a really good idea.
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right. I try to tell my customers, because we're lucky in Oregon, even though with COVID right now, we've kind of had to make some adjustments. But in general, when everything is normal, we can smell our weed. And I tell people to treat this stuff like food. We have encountered all these terpenes in our lives. I had a flower the other day that smelled just like blueberry, the strawberry cereal back in the day. It just blew me away. Even like the milk smell was in there. It was amazing. So I tell people to simply smell it. And if you get that wide eye, oh my God, dude, your body's telling you right now, it wants to smoke that stuff. It wants it in you. So treat the stuff like food. You'll never make a bad decision.
Ryan Herron and I from the Loud 100, he's all about the smells, about everything. And we were talking last week when he was here to do his show. If you haven't listened to the Loud 100, do so at talkcastpdx.com. It is just awesome. But we were talking about, I had some dabs, and it had a 22% terpene hit on it. And I didn't know that when I got it initially. I knew what the top 3 terps were, but I didn't look at the percentage. And of course I take that dab, it tingles, hits you hard. You got to cough because
I sneeze. When I hit high terpenes, I sneeze a lot.
It stings the nostrils, and so, but we were talking about, the terpenes are like the best part of the weed almost, for me, that's like the best part. I don't mind, I could do low THC, but if you have the right terpene combinations, it's good for what ails you. I believe in that whole, essential oils stuff.
Aromatherapy is what it all
I believe
down
to. I mean, that's a natural essential oils going on in plants. And that happens in all plants, but in cannabis, man, I'm a myrcene guy, I like that heavy earthy stuff, that kind of stuff, when I start getting into
Justin's an OG.
Yeah, getting into
right.
Next in the next couple of weeks, Matt, we should do, and Kelly, thank you for the idea. We should do Terpene Week and just do like 3 or 4 live shows and just do all on terps, because it's the normal smoker does not understand, I think, the complexities of what they're actually ingesting into their bodies. So, and I don't think most beer drinkers know either.
No, and you're missing out on a lot.
Beer is fucking crazy, just with weed too. It's not easy to. If it was easy, we'd all be doing it.
I would caution, and I would like kind of caution people too from a safety standpoint with terpenes. Like, there has been talk about capping the percentage of total terpenes that are in a product per the weight of that product. I'm not talking about flour. I'm talking about concentrates and dabs and stuff like that. If you are dabbing high volumes of terpenes at a high temperature, it's a volatile compound. So when you light it up and add heat, it does have off gases as well. And there is a conversion. So it's been recommended that terpenes not exceed more than 5% total of like.
What temperature of heating does it act?
Yeah, that's the first thing I thought of was what is high temperature?
I don't dab over 500.
I wouldn't dab over 500. And like, that's another thing that's like potentially on the verge of having some sort of oversight as well, is like limitations on the dabbing mechanisms, and to how hot they can get. Obviously, if you're doing your own lighter and butane, that's not going to be, you're going to have to figure that out on your own kind of thing. But there's recommendations from the manufacturer, like, torch it for this long to get this degree. We have monitors now. You can monitor how hot your dab rig gets and stuff like that. So I would say not to dab over 500 for sure, but like several different terpenes have different boiling points. And when you dab like 100 or 200 degrees past that boiling point, you're dramatically changing the chemical composition of what that is. So let me just like roll it all back and just say, dab at low temps.
Yeah. It's better for you. It's a better experience anyways. I know that
Go cold.
The red part of the cherry of a cigarette will get up to 800 degrees. So I imagine in a bowl, we're probably getting pretty damn close to that anyways. For flour.
That is the identified danger zone of where they're saying, like, you know,
carcinogens will start popping up.
800 degrees. Yeah.
I can't remember the exact pesticide, but, you know, we've been using this stuff on our tomatoes and foods for a long time. But when we switched over to cannabis, they found out that when you put a flame to it, it turns itself into a carcinogen. That's why they had to make that potential, you know, they had to make that stuff illegal. So, because we don't fire our tomatoes at 800 degrees. So obviously that stuff was okay to use at that point. So there's always going to be a level, you know, of safety.
I highly recommend a Vape Exhale vaporizer for dabs and for flour. We do have that on as our official dab rig of the Old Stonies.
Cool.
It is a great rig. I mean, you put it in there, you drop it in. Takes, you know, 30, 40 seconds. It doesn't go over 500. And boy, you get a pretty big hit because it builds up. And then you take it off and you're like, damn. But
slow and low, baby, just like cooking. Just like Matt said, if you treat it all like food, you're going to be doing great. Slow and low. Don't burn your bacon. You know, you don't want to change the flavor of your bacon. You want it to taste like bacon, right? Same thing with like processing and people that are in the industry, like treat it like food. Do it in a controlled, clean environment. You don't want your peanut butter sandwich in one hand while you're mixing a batch of distillate. We got to do this in a way that is for the people in like a medical capacity, but food safety is a really big part of it. And, you know, working on the national forum and trying to streamline a lot of best practices for cannabis, right? It's like, that is all based around food safety. It is all based around food safety practices, GMPs, you know, having a clean facility, checking it regularly and things like that, controlling the environment and stuff. So yeah, I loved what you said there, Matt, when you were like, treat it like food and you'll be good to go. It goes from everything from like smelling your strains to not burning the bacon to producing it in like a food grade environment, things like that. So yeah, it's a really good kind of like, I hate to say rule of thumb. I heard that that's actually like really sexist. I can't remember why, but yeah.
I'll tell you later.
Okay. Careful about what I say these days. You know, I'll like realize something I just sort of like blah, 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 blah is like super offensive to a group of people. So I'm really
I get you.
But yeah, but the general good guiding practices is certainly to keep it in mind as like a food-based product, essentially.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Now I want bacon.
I know.
Bacon sounded real good right now.
I'm hungry too, and we're getting close to wrapping it up for today. I just want to give props to an edible company called Astral. I don't know if you guys have had Astral yet. They make these great gummies with nerd candies and other things on top of them, and it's a star, so each star is 5 milligrams. Each piece of the star is 5 milligrams.
Oh, that's cool.
Easy to dose, and just absolutely delicious. I came across them. A friend of mine had tried them. I met the guys that run the company. I actually incognito went and bought some at a local cannabis store that has them and got them and took it home. And I ate the whole thing, 25 milligrams. I can eat 25 milligrams. So I ate
too.
I ate one star. And let me tell you, it was just absolutely delicious. And potency was perfect. Everything worked great. And it's just a fun new so check it out, Astral, and I think on Instagram. Let me see if I have their Instagram handy because.
Where can you buy it, Justin?
Well, I actually picked it up at Gross Cannabis, so over on I think it's 6th Avenue over.
Yeah, it's a great dispensary right down in Southeast. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I picked it up there, and boy, let me tell you, they were really good. And I got the ones with the nerds on top.
Nice, I love nerds.
My kind of people.
I was like into it. I was like, this is so good. But it's Astral I have it here. Astral.treats on Instagram. So check them out. ASTRAL.treats. So if you get a chance, hit those guys up, try them out. They're really delicious. So, and I think that's going to do it for the Old Stonies today. We're going to do more than one show a week coming up soon. So as we switch to our new live format, for the most part, that is what we're going to do, and we're looking forward to it. And Kelly O'Connor from Columbia Labs, we thank you so much for hanging out with us. And of course, people can find you on Instagram and LinkedIn. Where can they find you? if they want to chat with you.
Yeah, I got to get that Instagram account going. But certainly on LinkedIn. And like, Justin, maybe I'll give you my email address. People can reach out to me if they have testing questions or need any advice and stuff like that. We're kind of old school at Columbia Laboratories. Keep it pretty low key, you know?
Excellent. So if anybody wants to get a hold of Kelly, any questions about, testing, lab stuff, and just that world, feel free to message us on Instagram. You can follow the Old Stonies on Instagram at the Old Stonies. You can also follow along on CanCast 420 and TalkCast PDX as well. So that's going to do it for us. Thank you so much, guys, for hanging out today.
Thanks for coming by, Kelly.
Yeah, it's been a blast, you guys. Thank you so much. Have a great, beautiful, sunny Oregon afternoon.
Yeah, can't wait.
Back to an evening of selling weed for me. So I got to go into work tonight.
We'll try to let everybody know the schedule of our live stream shows. And I think next week we're really going to be hitting it hard. But I think we have 2 or 3 shows already scheduled for next week. So it's going to be awesome.
All right, guys.
All
Slay
right,
all day.
Know the drill. And until next time, keep on smoking and peace.
Peace.